Her phone was at 12% when I saw the last message come through. He just ordered dessert, wine glass, winking face. I was still holding the drill when it buzzed on the counter. The locksmith had just left. I told him it was for a roommate situation, which wasn't a lie. That's what we'd become, hadn't we? Roommates. Strangers. Enemies in matching pajama sets. The door now had a reinforced deadbolt. New keys. No spares. No way back in without going through me. I stood there in the living room, staring at her phone screen, watching her battery bleed out while she giggled across the city with him, Travis, or Trent, or something that sounded like a protein shake. She'd left it behind in her rush. The one time she wasn't glued to it, and it would be her biggest mistake. I didn't snoop. I didn't need to. The messages were still open. She didn't even bother locking the screen. Their dinner plans. The teasing emojis. The lie she texted me 30 minutes earlier. Having sushi with the girls, 2 hearts, phones dying. Sushi, huh? Funny, because I'd just seen a picture of her holding a wine glass over a steak. Candles lit. No girls in sight. Just him, sunglasses on the table, grinning like he'd stolen something. He had, but I'd just stolen it back. I sat in the dark, lit only by the glow of her phone. Every new text came in hotter than the last. He was calling her wild. She was calling him dangerous. It was like reading a story I'd been erased from. One where I was the plot twist they didn't expect. Then her name popped up on my own screen. Incoming call. I didn't answer. Not yet. She called again. And again. Then came the texts. Why isn't my key working? Wendell? What the hell? Is this a joke? Then silence. A long one. I imagined her trying to come in through the garage. I had already unplugged it. I imagined her realizing there was no way inside. Realizing her bags were still in the hallway. Realizing the bedroom she called hers was now fortified with locks she didn't have the code to. Then the final message. If you don't open this door, I swear. But she didn't finish it. Because that's when I turned off the Wi-Fi, and her phone, just like our marriage, went dead. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. I lay on the couch, in silence, in the same house where we used to laugh about burnt pancakes and spill wine on old throw blankets. Now, all I could hear was the distant sound of wind hitting the new lock I'd installed myself. Funny, I'm not even handy. I looked up a YouTube tutorial, sweating through the process, shaking with every turn of the screwdriver. But I did it. That lock was my line in the sand. My silent declaration, you don't live here anymore, not the version of you that betrayed me. I checked her location once, around 1:30 a.m. She was still outside, parked, probably calling friends, calling me, maybe even calling Travis, trying to make sense of what just happened. The satisfying part? She had no idea I'd seen everything. She didn't know I had watched her messages unfold like a soap opera she thought she had the lead role in. She didn't know her phone lit up my world more than she had in months. I expected rage, screaming, maybe even cops. But instead, around 2:12 a.m., her car finally left. She didn't knock again, didn't shout through the mail slot. She just vanished into the night. And I stayed there, gripping her phone like it owed me answers, knowing I was the one who had to face the truth now. In the morning, I finally got up and walked past our wedding photo. Her face frozen in a smile I didn't recognize anymore. Was she already thinking about someone else when that photo was taken? Was she already planning an exit strategy while I was planning to grow old with her? Around 9:46 a.m., her sister called me. Wendell, she said, with zero sugar in her voice. What the hell is going on? Darla says you locked her out like a psycho. I didn't yell. I didn't defend myself. I just told her calmly. Ask her what she was doing at Arlo's steakhouse last night. Then call me back. She hung up, and that's when the tide really started turning. Because within hours, the texts started flooding in. From mutual friends. From her cousin. Even from her boss, who'd apparently heard some twisted version of the story. They all had one question. Is it true? Did you change the locks on your wife? Yes, I did. But not because I'm heartless. Because I'm exhausted. Because for months I begged for connection, for honesty, for something real. And she gave me half smiles, half truths, and half nights alone wondering what I did wrong. She texted me around noon. From a new number. Probably Travis's phone. Wendell, talk to me. Please. This is going too far. Too far. Too far was letting another man kiss you while your husband reheated your leftovers. Too far was lying about girls' nights that ended in hotel rooms. Too far was making me feel like I was losing my mind, when really, I was losing my wife. I didn't answer, but I didn't block her either, because what I had planned next required her to keep texting. This wasn't over. Not even close. That afternoon felt surreal. I moved through the house like a ghost, seeing everything the way a stranger might. Her coat still hung by the door. The scent of her shampoo clung to the pillows. A single bobby pin sat on the bathroom sink like it hadn't just been ripped out of the hair of a woman who spent the night lying to her husband. I didn't touch anything. Not out of sadness, out of strategy. Everything needed to stay exactly as it was when she walked out the door. Because I wanted her to feel that jarring absence of control. I wanted her to step back into this house and realize it wasn't hers anymore. At 4:08 p.m., the doorbell rang. I knew it wouldn't be her. She wouldn't dare show up alone. Instead, it was someone worse, her mother. And right behind her, Darla, my wife. No makeup, hair tied up, wearing a sweatshirt I bought her last Christmas. She looked like a teenager who'd been caught sneaking out. Her mom did all the talking, naturally. Darla always hid behind louder people when real consequences showed up. Wendell, her mother started, already scowling. This is absolutely ridiculous. She's your wife. She was, I said, holding the door half closed. Not anymore. Darla stepped forward and tried to play soft. Can we talk? Please. Just you and me. I stared at her. I wanted to say everything. I wanted to scream. Talk? Now you want to talk? After months of shutting me out, after letting some gym joke boyfriend share dinners that used to be sacred? But I didn't say any of it. Instead, I stepped back and handed her something. Not keys. Not papers. A printed screenshot. One of the texts she'd sent him. She took it with trembling hands. I'll never forget the way her face changed. First, pale shock. Then anger. Then embarrassment. She looked up at me, eyes filling with tears she hadn't earned. You went through my phone? She asked, like that was the crime. You went through our vows, I said flatly, then closed the door on both of them. She didn't knock again. She didn't yell or beg. She just stood there. Two women who once called me family, and realized they had nothing left to say that I hadn't already heard in digital whispers from another man's inbox. Later that evening, I received a voice note from her. I didn't expect that. I thought she'd switch to silence, or worse, threats. But this message wasn't fire, it was ice. Wendell, you are blowing this out of proportion. It was dinner. That's it. I was confused. I didn't cheat. I just needed attention. Someone who noticed me. I told Travis it wasn't going to continue. Please don't ruin everything over a stupid mistake. A stupid mistake. Those 3 words looped in my head like a cruel joke. Because if it was so stupid, why did she lie so well? Why did it take a locked door for her to finally tell the truth? I didn't reply. I just forwarded the message to someone else, someone who deserved to hear it more than me. Travis's wife. Because yes, I found her. And yes, she'd already suspected something. But she had no idea just how deep the betrayal went. Not yet. The sound of betrayal isn't screaming. It isn't broken glass. It isn't slammed doors or sobbing confessions. It's quiet. It's the silence after the phone stops buzzing, after the last fake apology is left on read, after your home becomes a museum of lies wrapped in cozy blankets and throw pillows from Target. I sat at the kitchen table that night, her voice notes still echoing in my head, staring at the half-used birthday card I never got to give her. It said, "To my love, who makes every day brighter." I'd written that 6 weeks ago, 2 days before she skipped our dinner plans to help her friend move. A friend who apparently didn't exist. I left the card where it was. Let it rot next to her forgotten mail and in used gym passes. She could have that when she came back for her things, if I even let her in. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Because if I was going to rebuild from this, I needed the whole picture. So I reached out to the last person Darla ever wanted me to find, Travis's wife. Her name was Justine. I found her through a mutual tag post in one of those half-hearted couples hike photos Travis had uploaded months ago. His profile was locked down now, probably thanks to Darla's paranoia, but not before I found her account, sent a message, and said the most painful sentence I've ever typed in my life. "Hi, you don't know me. I think your husband and my wife are having an affair." No drama, no accusations, just the truth. She saw the message within an hour. Didn't reply. I figured she was ignoring it, maybe even blocking me. But then, around midnight, I got a single response. "Meet me tomorrow, 11 a.m., near the bridge on 3rd. Come alone." I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sit still. The thought of seeing her, of confirming everything, of exposing what Darla tried so hard to hide, it was almost too much. I kept pacing. I kept whispering to myself like an idiot, rehearsing what I would say, how I'd explain that I wasn't crazy, that this was real, that I wasn't just some bitter, jealous guy inventing stories to feel important. When I finally arrived the next day, she was already there. Justine was younger than I expected. Polished, poised, the kind of woman who made Darla feel insecure just by walking into a room. She didn't say hello, just handed me her phone and let me scroll. Photos, texts, voice notes, receipts. My stomach twisted as I realized how deep it went. Not just dinners, not just flirting, hotel reservations, midday meetups. A photo of my wife in the passenger seat of a car that wasn't mine, wearing a dress I had complimented her on weeks ago. She looked at me, her expression numb. I needed to see if you were crazy. You're not. I couldn't speak. Then she said something I didn't expect. Something that rewired everything in my head. They've done this before, she said calmly. She's not his first. He's not her first. And suddenly, it wasn't just betrayal. It was a pattern. It was a game I didn't even know I'd been drafted into. They'd both been here before, and left others behind like broken mirrors. I went home with all the proof I needed. But instead of confronting Darla, I did something colder. Something final. I printed everything, sealed it in an envelope, and dropped it off at her sister's house with a note that said only 5 words. Your golden girl is gone. No screaming. No drama. Just consequences. And silence. When you find out your entire marriage has been a stage play and you were the understudy, there's this moment where your soul just detaches. I walked around the next few days like I was watching someone else's life unravel. Everyone I saw at the gas station, at the post office, at the stupid sandwich place Darla and I used to go to, they had no idea I was a man whose world had caved in quietly while the ceiling above them stayed intact. She still hadn't come to get her stuff. Still hadn't asked for her keys. And I hadn't reached out since I dropped the envelope off at her sister's house. But I knew she got it. Her cousin, the only person in her family who ever liked me, texted me 2 words that said it all. I'm sorry. But here's the part no one tells you. When the storm clears and the house is still standing, you're left with the question, now what? I wasn't interested in screaming matches or courtroom drama. That would have given her a stage. No, what I wanted was exposure. Quiet, cold, undeniable. So I did something I didn't think I had the stomach for. I RSVP'd to the upcoming charity event Darla had planned months ago, a lavish dinner for her company's donors, the same ones who still believe she was some wholesome marketing director with a fairy tale marriage. She was going to be there. Travis, apparently, was on the guest list too. And suddenly, I saw an opportunity one hadn't seen before. I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted witnesses. The night of the event, I dressed in the same suit I wore to our 5th anniversary. It still smelled faintly like the cologne she once complimented. This time, I didn't wear it for her. I wore it for me. When I walked into the banquet hall, the air practically froze. A few people recognized me immediately. I saw her across the room, wearing her favorite emerald dress, the one I bought during a trip to Seattle. She was mid-laugh, hand on Travis's arm, until her eyes met mine. She went pale. I didn't approach her. Not yet. I made my rounds, said hello to her coworkers, asked about the projects I pretended to care about for years, smiled like I wasn't holding a time bomb in my pocket. Then, just before dinner, I handed a flash drive to the event coordinator. On it were carefully curated screenshots, emails, GPS tags, and the voice note she'd sent me, the one where she admitted to everything. I told the coordinator it was a presentation from Darla for the fundraising slideshow. She didn't even question it. 10 minutes later, just as the main course was being served, the room dimmed. The projector came on. Darla stood at the mic, preparing to welcome the guests. She hadn't checked with the tech team first. Big mistake. The first image to appear on the screen wasn't her campaign banner. It was a message from Travis. You looked insane in that dress tonight. Wendell has no idea, does he? Gasps. Murmurs. Then her voice note played. Her voice filled the room, shaking. It was just dinner. I needed attention. Someone who noticed me. Darla's face collapsed in on itself. Travis vanished from his chair. Her boss stood up in silence. And me? I walked out while the room imploded behind me. No screaming. No accusations. Just the truth. delivered in surround sound. She didn't call me that night. She didn't text either. I thought she might. I thought she'd at least try to spin it, scream at me, demand an apology, act like I had crossed a line for airing our dirty laundry in front of 100 high society donors and smug business execs. But nothing. Just silence. And it hit me then. She wasn't just embarrassed. She was cornered. The next morning, I got a message from an unknown number. No name. Just a short, surgical line of text. You got what you wanted. Leave her alone. I didn't respond, but I smiled. Travis, probably. Defending the same woman who used him like a napkin. What he didn't realize is I was already done. This wasn't about revenge anymore. Not really. It was about balance. I needed the scales to tip back in my direction, and that night at the gala, they did. The people she manipulated. The image she hid behind. It all shattered on screen. Later that day, I went back to the house, the one she still hadn't come to collect her things from. I left the front door unlocked. Not as an invitation. As a test. I wanted to see what kind of person she really was, now that the mask had cracked. Around 4:45 p.m., the sound of her key in the door made me freeze. She tried it. It didn't turn. She hesitated, then pushed the door open slowly, realizing I'd left it unlocked. She walked in like a stranger. Her steps careful, her eyes scanning the place like it belonged to someone else. She looked thinner. Her usual bravado was gone. I didn't say anything right away. I just stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, watching her take it all in. This used to feel like home, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. It's not, I replied flatly. She nodded, like she already knew that. Then she walked to the dining table and sat down. The same place she once used to plan weekend getaways and scribble grocery lists. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just said something I didn't expect. Do you think I'm a monster? I didn't answer. Not at first. Because if I did, I would have unloaded years of pain in one breath. The years she made me question my worth. The nights she came home late and smelled like another man's cologne and said it was just the gym. The way she rolled her eyes when I tried to hold her hand. The way she flinched when I said, I love you. Like the words made her skin crawl. Instead, I just looked at her and said, no. I think you're empty. And you filled the silence with attention from anyone who'd offer it. Even if it meant burning down your own life. She winced, like that hurt more than yelling would've. She stood up. I didn't think you'd go through with it. The gala. The lock. All of it. That's the thing about men like me, I said. We warn you quietly. And when no one listens, we disappear loudly. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I didn't give her another chance. I turned, walked upstairs, and closed the bedroom door behind me. Not to sleep. Not to cry. But to finally pack my bags. Not hers. Mine. The next morning, I left my own house for the last time. I didn't slam the door. I didn't leave a note. I didn't even look back. I carried 2 suitcases, both of them packed with the version of me that tried. The version that forgave late nights. That believed lies about book clubs and spa weekends and wine with coworkers. The version that gave her every benefit of the doubt until there were no more doubts left to give. I had become unrecognizable to myself, trying to keep something alive that had flatlined long before she ever met Travis. And somehow, walking away felt more powerful than catching her red-handed ever could have. I didn't go far. Just a rented apartment on the edge of town. 1 bedroom, bare walls, a mattress on the floor, and a toaster that only worked half the time. But it was mine. All mine. No perfume lingering in the bathroom. No passive-aggressive silence at dinner. No pretending that we still had something sacred. She didn't message me that day, or the next, but her silence was louder now. It wasn't avoidance. It was strategy. She was letting the scandal cool down, waiting for me to get weak. To soften. To want the version of her that cried in the hallway and said things like, do you think I'm a monster? But I didn't want that version. I didn't want any version. Then, on day 4 of my self-imposed exile, she finally cracked. A long message. Paragraphs. It came through at 2:13 a.m., when I was half asleep, listening to the dull hum of the fridge in my new kitchen that smelled like cardboard and cheap detergent. Her message started with an apology, of course. Not for what she did, but for how things went. She said she wished she'd handled it differently. That she felt blindsided and exposed. That she never expected me to humiliate her like that. I laughed when I read that part. Humiliate her? I had stayed quiet for months. Swallowed every gut instinct. buried every suspicion. Humiliation? She was lucky I didn't live stream the text threads. Lucky I still had enough decency to not post screenshots with her company tagged. The last paragraph, though, that was the one that got to me. Not because it was emotional, but because it was calculated. She said she wanted to talk. Not about us, but about the house, the finances, the car title, the divorce. All the parts of our life she once called ours, now suddenly reduced to a negotiation. That was when it hit me like a punch in the chest. She hadn't broken down. She hadn't seen the light. She was regrouping, rebranding, strategizing damage control while trying to walk away with as much as she could carry. That's who she really was. Not a heartbroken woman, not a confused wife, but a PR specialist, spinning her own betrayal like a bad headline. I didn't respond, not because I didn't have words, but because I didn't know her mind anymore. Instead, I made one final decision, one she never saw coming. I set a meeting with a lawyer the next morning, but not just any lawyer. The same one who represented Travis's first wife, the one he cheated on 3 years ago. Because if Darla thought she was going to get out clean, she hadn't read the fine print. The lawyer was as ruthless as he was polite, the kind of man who wore calm like a weapon. I sat across from him in his office, surrounded by quiet, framed degrees and case files like silent assassins. He already knew the story. I didn't even have to finish my sentence before he said, "She's going to try to negotiate from a position of damage control. That's where we take everything she never thought you'd protect." In 3 weeks, the paperwork was ready. My name removed from the mortgage, the joint accounts divided cleanly, and every record of my loyalty documented in a way that would hold up anywhere, even in a courtroom she'd hoped to avoid. She never showed up to sign in person. She sent her lawyer. No apology, no eye contact, just silence and a pen. That was the last time I heard her name spoken in any official capacity. But that's not where the story ends. Because the truth is, moving on isn't something that happens with a signature. It's what happens in the in-between moments. Like when you find yourself grocery shopping for one and realize there's no one sighing behind you because you picked the wrong brand of coffee. Or when you come home late after working overtime, and for the first time in years, no one accuses you of hiding something. It happens slowly, like a wound sealing without fanfare. About 6 months later, I was invited to a friend's birthday dinner. Nothing fancy, just a backyard barbecue with paper plates and old rock songs playing through crackling speakers. I almost didn't go. Socializing still felt like walking across glass barefoot. But I went. And that's where I met Jamie. Not some rebound. Not a fairy tale. Just real. Honest. Her laugh didn't sound like Darla's. It wasn't calculated. It wasn't performative. It just came out like she'd earned it. She asked questions and actually listened to the answers. She didn't flinch when I mentioned the divorce. She just nodded, like she understood what surviving looked like. We didn't rush. I didn't try to impress her. I didn't need to. A few weeks ago, I invited her over for the first time. Same apartment. Still small. Still simple. But when she walked through the door, she looked around like it was already a home. "Smells like fresh starts," she said, smiling. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. I don't think I'll ever forget what Darla did. Some things leave scars even after they've healed. But I stopped checking her social media. I stopped wondering if she regretted it. Because that part? That's her burden now. I've carried enough. I changed the locks that night to keep her out. But it turns out, I was unlocking something else. Peace. Freedom. Myself. And that, right there, that was the real ending. The one I never saw coming. The one I actually deserved.